Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our public affairs program, The Sounding Board. Joining us on the telephone this morning, we're talking with 18th District Congressman Bob Gibbs. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Good morning, Mike. Good to be with you.
Well, obviously, the out of the gate, and you and I were talking about this some off the air, everybody, I think just Joe Citizen wants to find out, is Congress going to do anything with this spending situation? And where are we right now as far as what the House is proposing for a budget?
Well, we worked I think over 90 hours last week to pass what they call a CR, continuing resolution. And what they did back in December in the lame duck session, they passed a CR to fund the government through March 4th, which, well, March 4th is almost here. It's this coming Friday. A week from tomorrow, and we passed the bill out at 5 a.m. about 5 a.m. Saturday morning, with $61 billion in actual cuts. That money was going to be spent in the next 7 months of the rest of the fiscal year, ending September 30th, and we sent it over to the Senate, and I know Minority Leader Pelosi sent a memo out to her chief of staffs on their side of the aisle and said that Republicans are aiming to shut down government. Well, we're not. My goal is to cut spending and not shut down the government.
We have heard this, I don't know if you want to call it the word game, where some of the Democrats are saying, we want to make cuts, but they'll tell you that they're wanting to cut the rate or the growth of rate of spending. That's something completely different than what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, we're talking about actual cuts, like many households have had that done here in the last while, and businesses and tighten their belts, and government hasn't tightened its belt. We've got the budget that the president submitted this fiscal year yet is $1.6 trillion deficit. Be the largest deficit on record. Higher taxes, and his Secretary of Treasury, Tim Geithner, said that this budget's not sustainable, and that's a problem. But they don't seem to want to address it.
Even some of your colleagues on the other side of the aisle are saying things like, we need to be spending more. How do they think that this train's not going to run right off the track?
I don't know, but let me give you one little figure. This country, our gross domestic product, it's referred to as the GDP, is about $15 trillion. China's second at $5 trillion. And the problem we have now, historical numbers, about 18 to 20% or 18 to 20 cents of every dollar of the GDP that our economy raises, goods and services, goes to pay for the federal government. The historical number is 18 to 20 cents. Right now, we're a little bit above 25 cents, and that's a record. It goes back to World War II levels. And you can't be taking that much money out of the economy to fund the federal government and don't expect how do you expect job creation and economic growth? It just doesn't work.
I've heard a couple of interviews with is it Mr. Cranston, Alan Cranston, that was on the president's commission on how to cut the spending deficit. Was that who I'm thinking of? Former Wyoming senator. And he said that if we don't look at entitlements, if we talk about everything but entitlements, we're kidding ourselves. He said you got to go to the heart of those things because those are the things that are killing us.
Well, as you've heard, Speaker Boehner has said that we need to have a serious conversation, a bipartisan effort to deal with that. And to give it, what we cut last week in the CR was discretionary non-defense spending, basically, and that's about 12% of the total budget. It used to be about 15%, but the rest of the budget, I guess, has grown so much. And you're right. The mandatory spending, the entitlements, and the interest, and all that is really growing exponentially, and we need to really address the problem long term. But what we did last week was the largest cut in American history of that part of the budget, and so it's the first bite at the apple, and we need to keep taking bites at the apple. But the president and my colleagues on their side of the aisle need to realize that we can't keep on this path that we're on because we're mortgaging the future for our kids at best, and we're risking a total economic collapse. And I don't like to be a doomsdayer, but the numbers aren't good at all.
one of the things, one of the responses that came out from the Democratic Party after that action was taken last week that you just referred to, saying that many of the Social Security recipients, their checks were going to be late. Any truth to that?
I don't know. I've been told no, but I'm not. I would not bet the house on that. If the government does get shut down, they say it's non-essential services. So I can safely say air traffic control and the military will still function. And I think there's some disagreement what really happens to Social Security. I've been told that Social Security checks will still go out, but I'm not confident that might be the case.
So when we talk about cuts and things like discretionary spending, in layman's terms, what is that? What are we talking about?
It's for the most part, it's funding the federal agencies. I think for the most part, and maybe some money to the states for programs.
What was the figure under this administration on how many new bureaucrats were hired in Washington? Do you have that figure?
I don't have it right off the top of my head. It's a large number, and I think I read somewhere here recently that at the track they're on, by the end of President Obama's term, the federal employment could actually double from what it was when he started. I know the unemployment rate in Washington, D.C. is less than 4%. They're kind of living in a bubble there.
Do we really need that many people at the federal level?
No, I don't think so. On their health care that they passed last session, they're aiming to hire over 16,000 new IRS agents to enforce enforce the provisions in health care, which is absolutely not necessary. We just got to find ways to make government more efficient and prioritize, and there's a lot of ways that can be cut in the federal government, believe me.
For our listeners just tuning in, we're talking with 18th District Congressman Bob Gibbs. He's joining us on the telephone here on our Sounding Board show, talking about the budget. And every congressman that we've ever talked to on either side of the aisle over the last 3 decades, when it came to budget talk, I've asked a lot of the same questions. So I'm not picking on Democrats. I'm not. This is an equal opportunity haranguing right here. I think people with the last election, I think they sent a message that we're tired of this. We want something done.
There's no doubt. And let's put this a little bit maybe in perspective. They're always talking trillions of dollars and the $1 trillion debts, and they've added $5 trillion to the national debt in the last last 3 years, I guess now. But if you look at it this way, if you say the average household income is $52,000 a year, if that average household was the federal government, they're spending at least $80,000 a year, and that's not. And people know that's not sustainable and not healthy.
Changing gears just a little bit, we talked just briefly in the budget about defense. That has been I guess for some Republicans or conservatives, that's been like Social Security or Medicaid to the other side of the aisle. You don't touch that. But even when we hear that the Pentagon doesn't want certain aircraft, but Congress insists that we build these things, that's not right either.
Well, in my opinion, defense has to be scrutinized too. And I was at a meeting here last week, and there was the chief of staff of the Army was there, and a whole bunch of 4-star generals, and they all said, and the chief of the Army, whatever his title is, he was a 4-star general. He said that we know defense. We need to look at ourselves and find ways to streamline and do better and take our share of cuts too. And so I think they realize that. Obviously, we've got to make sure that this country is ready. We definitely have to support our troops overseas and our veterans. But there's places, I think, in some of the procurement and areas that we can find ways to find